ROEs. Wow. We're not military at all.
Echo, welcome, dude.
What's up, Echo? Good to see you. All right, yeah. So what we're gonna do is here's a debate topic. This is our debate topic for the evening: homeschooled versus public school. Which one's better? And so you'll get a minute or so to plead your case. And then after that, we just kind of have at each other.
Yep. We'll do you want to do a minute and a half? Or you want to do 2 minutes?
Well, let's just do a minute because it doesn't take very long to simply present your argument.
Okay.
And then after that, we can kind of get into the weeds.
And a little backstory. One of us went through one of these, and the other one of us has went through the other one of these.
Technically, I went through both, but
So yes, one experienced and one did not experience. Do you wanna start us off?
I think it'll be pretty easy to guess which one we're arguing for. So yeah, I was homeschooled up until 7th grade. All of my siblings were homeschooled. Um, the top three were homeschooled till their senior year. Went to high school for just 1 year, and then went off to college. My older brother was homeschooled till his sophomore year of high school. Did 3 years of high school, then went off to college. I started going to school in 7th grade because I made homeschooling absolutely hell for my mother. And yeah, there's that. But yeah, so my argument is that homeschool
I'll
is
restart your
better than
timer.
public school. You gonna restart it or?
Yeah,
Oh,
because you went through the whole story.
yeah. Okay, you're right. You're right. So my argument is that homeschooling is better than public schools for a couple reasons, namely, um, working at the pace that the child can work at. The one-on-one with your teacher, be it your mom or your dad, which is the small class size that public school always shoots for. You can't get any smaller classrooms than homeschool, especially if you have siblings. It's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so class size, work at your speed. Parents have control of the curriculum. Now, I don't mean that to say that there is no curriculum, but the government is out of the curriculum, and I will speak more on that as we go along. So,
All right. And then I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum. I personally think, and I'll explain some of this more, more so on the personality aspect and the intermingling of other people. Right. So in public school, you get to meet all kinds of people from all walks of life. You even if you have one bad teacher, that doesn't mean you have all the bad teachers, right? There might be situations where you're homeschooled, and I'm sure there's standards that your parent has to meet, but that doesn't necessarily mean that your parent is great at teaching, or that your parent can teach those things properly or understands all of the curriculum properly. Um, but I do think that it's good for the development of a person to go through and intermingle with all of different people, go through sports, bands, all of that in a public setting. Now we start.
cool. All right, so I guess I'll take the floor first. Most of your arguments, if not all of your arguments, are easily countered within the homeschool sphere. So, namely the social aspect. I know that there is a stigma of the homeschoolers being just sheltered, nerdy, ignorant of the world, what have you. We've all met those people. That doesn't necessarily mean that that's the standard, and it shouldn't be. Socializing of your kid is a step that any parent can take, and there are steps that you can and should take. Your child will socialize to the level that you encourage them to socialize, right? So you mentioned, band, sports. I did all of that stuff growing up as a homeschooler. I've played piano since I was 6 years old, so I was constantly doing group lessons with other kids,
Mm-hmm.
um, traveling around to competitions, playing in festivals, meeting people, socialization within the church sphere. Um, so Sunday morning church, Sunday evening church, Wednesday evening church. There's a lot of socialization that goes on there within that sphere. Public groups, anything like that. It's up to the parent, I think, to get their kid out there. And if it's not happening, I don't necessarily think that that's the fault of homeschooling as a concept. I think that's the parent and the home structure that they come from. So that's my counter argument to that one point.
Mm-hmm.
The other point that I do want to make that you can do a counter to if you want. Um, it's really important in as far as the homeschooling, and the people that homeschool do this for a very specific reason. And it was for us is that we didn't trust the curriculums of the public schools, and the fact that um, public schools really aren't technically public schools. I posted this on Facebook a while back, and I just kind of want to read it for you. We need to stop calling them public schools. They are not run by the public, they are not open to the public, and they are not accountable to the public. They are run by the government. They are regulated by the government, they are funded by the government, they are compelled by the government. Ergo, they are government schools. Um, so, with that, I've read horror story after horror story of parents finding horrible stuff being taught in their school, whether it be socially, whether it be politically, whether it be sexually. Sex education is a huge hot button topic in schools today.
Mm-hmm.
And parents have no say. I mean, they can go and they can voice opinions at school board hearings. And I've seen a whole bunch of videos. Matt Walsh has a really good one that I'd recommend where he goes to a school board and just roasts them over a spit. But the issues that come from a government mandated um, curriculum that parents have no control over, and parents who have issues who are taking issues with this are simply doing damage control rather than getting out in front of these issues by teaching the kids themselves, right? Not to mention that public schools used to be specifically designed for poor inner city kids. Like if you look back at the history of public school back even in England, the rich people homeschooled their kids, or they paid a tutor to homeschool their kids. Public school was for the poor kids. This is a relatively new concept that public schools are the way to go. So,
So I have a couple counter arguments to both to that stuff. Then, the first one you brought up like the social ability. That was my main one of my main points of my argument. Social
mm-hmm,
ability. So you said obviously with sports and stuff, and then you mentioned the church, going to the church and everything. Now, not everyone's parents believe in that kind of thing, and it brings you toward a certain type of people, right? So you're gonna take a certain sect of people, and that's all you're gonna know growing up is this type of person. In a public school, what you're gonna do is you're gonna take everybody from all walks of life. You're gonna sit in a cafeteria, and you're gonna have the opportunity as a child and as a teenager, which is what I think is right. You're gonna have the opportunity to intermingle with everybody. You're gonna have the opportunity to intermingle with the rich kid, the poor kid, some of a different race, maybe a gay kid, maybe whatever they are, a band kid, a jock, or whatever, and you get to go through and see the personality types of all those people, good and bad, and then that's ingrained in your memory instead of only being around a certain group of people, right? I think that's paramount for society today. I also think that, and this is not a popular opinion, um, I don't think bowling's okay, right? In the long scheme, but I do think that friction is okay. So if you have an argument with someone at school or someone's a dickhead at school, getting that interaction is good for the development of someone because that helps them grow as a person and help them grow
mm-hmm,
into someone with a little bit harder skin compared
for sure,
to not being in those situations.
right.
Um, the parents have
Uh,
no
uh,
say in public school
an,
part.
an
I get
over an
that.
over an overprotective parent will want their kid to not have those issues, but a
Yes,
good parent will want their kid to learn how to deal with those issues.
exactly. And I think it might be now. This is a weird one too because there's public schools that are good. There's public schools that are bad. There's parents that are good at homeschooling. There's parents that are bad at homeschooling. It's a overall like if you're gonna get taught in Texas, it might align with some of your more conservative values. Same with Florida now. If you want to learn more liberal values, you put your kids in Seattle or you put your kids in California, or in New York, if that's what your parental thing is. But the thing about the public school system is too, you're gonna meet children and teachers and all of that have the whole political spectrum, the whole socioeconomic spectrum is gonna be in there. And I just personally think that's very important. And then the government mandated curriculum. That's a touchy one. Um, because it's
We can't deny that it's a thing though.
oh
That's
no,
the
it is
problem.
1,000,000% a thing, and depends on who's in office is um what people get taught. Now there's some state stuff too that they can interdict and add some stuff in there, but they can't really subtract what the federal government tells them.
Wait,
Except
therein lies
for
the problem.
except for um Governor DeSantis in Florida, he came out recently and said, "I'm not mandating that my kids learn about the sexual transitions and stuff like that until from kindergarten until third grade, because there's so much there where kids don't understand anything. Really, honestly, I still
They
think
don't need to know about any of that kind of
they
stuff,
don't even know about any sexual education at all at that point. They need to know how
right?
to fucking add 1 plus 1, what colors they're supposed to have, and all that shit,
Reading,
right?
writing, and arithmetic, right?
Yeah, you don't need. So there's places in
Three
the United
R's.
States that have that. But the up to the parent part for the homeschooling too is great, but you can also go on spectrums. So is that parent overly one side or overly the other side? And that kid grows up in an environment that they don't get to um because you grew up in a good homeschool environment. I'm just saying spectrum of the homeschool environment.
Sure.
Does that kid only knows this one opinion and their parents never taught them critical thinking, as opposed to like in a public school, maybe I go to a public school like my brothers do, right? They learn more left leaning things sometimes, but then as a family, we have conversations about those things. I'll have conversations with them. My parents will have conversations and about the ideals and everything that's going on in the school and the information that's being taught. And I think if you're a good parent, you go, I have to send my son or daughter to public school because maybe I don't make enough money for private school, or I don't have the time because you have to work nowadays to homeschool my kids. Um, but when they do get home, I think it's imperative that a parent sits down with them and goes, "Okay, you're learning this. Here's the other side to it." No matter what they believe, if you're
Yeah.
conservative or liberal, if they're teaching a conservative policy and you're conservative, you should still give them the liberal policy of that, or vice versa, because that makes it so there's critical thinking in the minds of the child to where they can formulate their own opinion. And I just think that public school gives you more of a chance overall than a homeschool would of developing those critical thinking on those policies. That's where I'm at.
Point taken. I don't 100% agree with that, but I mean it is what it is.
Yeah.
The other big concern of mine and one of the big driving factors of why I don't want my kids going to a public school, in at least not initially. I so like I said, I was homeschooled up until basically right before high school. When I started going to school in 7th and 8th grade, I was only partially enrolled. We call it dual enrolled. So
Mm-hmm.
I would go to school in the morning. I'd take like 3 or 4 classes, and then I'd come home and I'd do the rest of my homeschool work in the afternoon. Um, and then when I started going to school in high school, I was high school full time. Right. So I think that set me up way better. For a couple of reasons. One, um, my homeschooling level of teaching leading up to when I went to high school, by the time I started going to school, I was going over things that I already learned,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that kind of goes back to my, pace of the child type deal. I had a cousin who was about 6 months younger than me who was doing high school level like calculus and biology when he was a middle schooler, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because he was just super smart kid, right? And homeschooling allowed him to do that. So by the time he went to college, you know, he already knew most of the stuff. It was
Mm-hmm.
kind of just an afterthought for him. But um, the other big concern I have is in the analogy of as soon as my kid is old enough to go to school, he goes to school. So like preschool, right? Um, my issue is who is raising my kid, right? So here's my thoughts on that. My kid goes to school at 7 in the morning, which means I, as a parent, maybe see my kid for an hour in the morning,
Mm-hmm.
right? Then let's assume I, as a parent, work a 9 to 5. My kid will get out of school at 2:30, 3 o'clock, and then they go to daycare till I get off at 5, where I come and pick up my kid, take my kid home, put him to bed at 8:30. That is roughly 4.5 hours out of the day where I, as the parent, the driving force in the correct rearing of my kid, 4.5 hours out of the day where I am actually with my kid,
Mm-hmm.
not including weekends. And now, single parent, that throws the whole other wrinkle into
And economic
that issue.
situation falls because a
Sure.
majority of the country, one, can't afford the homeschool because the both parents either have to work or whatever they're doing. Sometimes you can get a situation where you are fiscally well off enough to homeschool your kid, and you're educated enough. It's got to be both, right? You can't have I'm fiscally responsible but not educated enough, or I don't have the finances but I am educated enough. Like there's a real like bold line there saying you have to have time and you have to be fiscally good enough to go to where you can still support your family and do everything for this to even happen.
But here's my thought on that. Sure, I agree, I understand where you're coming from, but the fact still remains. I'm the second youngest of 6 kids. We all homeschooled. My mom did not work. My dad worked and earned what I made as a senior airman
Mm-hmm. Well,
annually.
that is that is
My dad, my parents
before though.
raised a family of 6. This was just in the 90s, starting in the 80s with my oldest brother.
Yeah, but
This wasn't that too far removed
inflation has
from.
gone up a ridiculous since the 90s in pay
All
and
right, so let's
everything.
let's
Even
even if we
even
even
since
theoretically, if we take the inflation out, and let's just assume everyone was squaring up at the same place we did. Like I said, my parents homeschooled 6 kids on a single income that was about what a senior airman's income. What I'm saying is it's doable. Did it suck most of the time? Sure. Did I not have a brand new pair of shoes until I was 8 years old? Sure. But it's
doable to
doable.
doable to someone living in Iowa where your dad made good money but not great money, but
Not
maybe
not great.
like the cost of living there is going to be a little bit lower than let's say the cost of living out here, right? There is no fucking way unless you're making 100 grand in California minimum that you and your spouse one like you can raise a family with one income in
So the
California.
question
Same thing with New
is
York.
whether or not you can support a family on a single income.
Now, yes, I mean and there's a lot of places in the United States that's you can do that. There's a lot of places you can't do that, but I still think for the development of the child, getting socialization of all cultures is the big thing with me.
Right. So it's like I said, it is definitely up to the parent to get the kid out there and
Now,
into those things. But like I said, back to my original big concern, 4.5 hours where the parent is actually raising the kid,
mhm,
which leaves however many hours in the day where the state and the government is raising my kid.
yeah,
I'm not okay with that.
That's
I'm not okay with that because I've seen the caliber of human that is a product of the educational system. And we make jokes about it. Oh, our education's in shambles. Oh, our society sucks. Well, yeah. And you really think that me as a concerned parent want my kid to go through that mechanism in the least? So if you look at it through that lens, I suppose, if you kind of take yourself out of the situation that you're currently in and look at it purely from a theoretical exercise,
mm-hmm,
I want to homeschool my kid because I want to be the one that raises my kid. I want to be the one that instills in him the the you know what it means to be a family, what it means for a man to love his wife, what it means for a wife to love her husband, to build a home, the religious importances, all that kind of stuff that the school system does not teach. Discipline, even something as simple as being able to discipline my kid when he or she screws up. The
mm-hmm.
public school system cannot do that. They're not allowed to. So if I just throw my kid willy-nilly into a school system that has no form of discipline, no correctional institutions because they can't, then my kid is growing up at the whims of one, their genetics, which God forbid my kid turns out anything like me, and doesn't have the correction
Same.
that I grew up in,
Yeah.
right? You know it about as well as I do. I mean, like I said, I made schooling such hell for my mom that she couldn't wait till high school.
Mm-hmm.
She needed a break,
I'll,
right? So just imagine if I grew up in the school system, how much of a wreck I would be, considering how much I wouldn't have learned that I do know. And yeah, so that's my biggest concern. And as a parent who wants the best for their kids, there's a certain amount of prioritizing. Sure. If my concern as a parent is the socialization of my kid because I don't want them to be awkward, then I as a parent will do what I need to get my kids socialized.
yeah, I think,
S-
well,
whether it's a church circle or whether it's a public circle or whatever the case, we're splitting hairs at that point.
it's not necessarily though, because like you would like, I would also like obviously time if I had a son or a daughter, but I do think that making them a well-rounded person who's exposed to all ideas is very important, especially in the world we live today. Um,
So expose your kid to ideas. You don't have to rely on the government to do that for you. You shouldn't rely on the government to do that for you.
I think it's good if you do um, put them through what the government does, so then you can explain to them why it is the way it is. Because if you don't experience something, you can't do it. You don't understand it, right?
Yeah.
Fully, you don't understand. Like I haven't been
Wait,
homeschooled, so I don't fully understand that. But
you don't understand all
um,
the benefits of it.
well, I
Quite.
understand in a
It's the same.
theoretical sense. Yes, if I was gonna cool myself or future wife or whatever it is, um, I want one of us to stay home and teach our other child the things
Absolutely.
that we do, that we believe in, properly educate them, um, instill everything, blah blah blah. I think yes, theoretically that's good. That's also saying that I'm the greatest person in the world to be teaching my child that, and so is my theoretical wife. I'll be honest, I got all shit fucked up with me, as do most people, as do all people.
Sure.
And I think it would be good for people to be exposed to others, especially in positions of authority. I think it's very beneficial to a child to to be exposed to, let's say, um, a teacher
Coach.
and a coach, but a teacher in a class that maybe they enjoy. So maybe they're really into history or they're really into science. I've had teachers that have made such an impact on me as a person, um, that I looked up to, or coaches or whatever in that public school system outside of whatever my parents are, or hey, Echo. Thanks, dude. I fucking love that. America, fuck yeah. Um, where was I going with that? Uh
Exposure to things.
oh,
Right.
yes. So that gives them more weight, like more role models and everything too, and maybe in a different light that I would give them, right? I would probably surround them with people and families that were veterans. I'll be honest with you, because I think veterans have a good sense of life and all of that. Um, I might push them more towards one way of looking at things politically or looking at things intellectually. And I think it's but just as a human being and how we are, we want what's best for our children, but we might not always know because of our own um downfalls what's 100% best for our children in the current state of the society, and then they won't maybe get exposed to um as much the bad parts of society sheltering them to where they can be exposed to those things, and then they can have a conversation with you about those things that they're being exposed to, so they can learn how to formulate their own opinions. That's the whole part. I think
Yeah. They
there's
had the
there's
conversation with sometime within the 4 hours that they see their parent during the day.
well, that's gonna happen. I'll be honest, with careers and everything, that's probably gonna happen anyways. But it doesn't mean
Potentially.
if you spend those 4 hours of quality time, is better than 12 hours of mediocre time too. If I'm if I my son gets out of school and goes to a sport and I go and watch him and he has those memories of him doing X, Y, and Z he's doing, um, and then we go, get some fucking ice cream or whatever, and we spend 4 hours of quality time together, more so than like, if like let's say during COVID, right? People fucking despise their spouses after COVID or during COVID. If I had my kid with me every single day, I couldn't give him. I don't believe, honestly, I would be able to give him for a longer stretch of time the same quality of attention that you can give. If your kid's there every day, it's kind of like all right, my kid's here. But if it's like
It
if
might
it's like
still be
I
the
have
same
four
quality
hours,
attention.
if I have 4 hours with him, I'm like, cool. I've got 4 hours with my kid. I'm gonna make this fucking worth it. I want to sit down and talk to him and play games with them or do whatever I want. If it's 12 hours, it's like cool. Let's go do something for this today, blah blah blah. But then maybe tomorrow we're gonna maybe not do all that. Go play with your toys or something. And I
Probably
think
still
that's
more
how
attention that they're getting at school though.
maybe not,
In a classroom of 40 people.
maybe not. That's the other thing is it's hard to tell. It depends on what school they
Yeah.
go to too. There's people out there
I
that
suppose the
really
core of
care.
all my yeah. I suppose the core of all my arguments boil down to um having the option and having the choice as the parent.
That is a
You
big
brought
thing.
up a good point. Maybe I don't know what's best for my kid in any given situation, but you better darn well hope that or know and understand that I still have better hope for my kid than the government does. So,
Yes, but I
what
do think
so
that there are, even in government, there are people there that legitimately got into teaching us stuff that like legitimately care about the children and what they go through.
oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
But if the core of what they are able to teach is out of their hands,
That's
then
also on
again
the parent.
it goes back to what do you mean? How so?
So if like I said, if I want to live like let's say I'm more left leaning or more right leaning, if I want to go live somewhere that wants to teach things maybe a little different, I might go to Texas or Florida, where their curriculum's structured differently than California and New York. Um,
But a homeschool parent doesn't have to make that distinction. They don't have to uproot their family to go to or I don't have to move to the town over to get into a better school district if that's what my concern is.
mhm. I,
All of those concerns are moot if you homeschool.
pending the competency of the parents.
Funny you should mention that. My mom taught all of us,
I'm not saying like
right?
we said earlier, you grew up in a good homeschool situation, right? There's millions of kids that grow up in bad households, just in general. So, and they might not even be bad household, like think they're bad households, but they grow up in super
Well,
abusive,
okay,
bad
so
households,
let's
and
say single parent households. You write out don't a single parent doesn't have the opportunity to live, subsist, and teach. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. We've just made a fantastic argument for not having kids out of wedlock.
Well, they
Now
might
that
have
okay,
been out of
so that
wedlock and
that's
divorce
a
and
now
stuff.
that's a
That's a
different
way
that's
different
a
debate.
different right, and that's a broader socio political issue at play.
Mm-hmm.
But from a statistics standpoint, if you want to,
Statistics so much.
I know you do,
They're
just because you can't
no, it's because
you
they
can't trust the person to state accurate statistics.
no, it's because they played at every side. There's a statistic. I guarantee you, we could look up a bullshit topic like like elephants are gray because of what, and there's probably a statistic stating that they're gray because of one reason, and there's probably a statistic there's gray because of another reason, or why did Blockbuster go under, or did people actually how many people actually like Blockbuster before it went under, and there's statistics that support both sides. I fucking hate that.
Well, the statistics will simply say that streaming was more popular than going to a movie store and not being able to get the movie and getting a scratched movie,
And there's
right? It was simply a
probably
better product.
there
That's a simple.
I'm just saying there's I guarantee you we could probably look it up, and there's probably a statistic that says a different reason. I'm just saying
Well,
I that's why I'm not big on statistics. We need them in some cases, yes, but I think there should be investigation on both sides of statistics and what the sample sizes of and all of that before utilizing them. Because
sure.
the 100 people thing, I fucking hate that. If you get a group of 100 people, this is kind of going off topic. If you get a group of 100 people and you base the population of an area or a country off of what a randomization of 100 people think that are from the same state, and you're talking about the country or from the same fucking city, that's the dumbest shit I've ever heard in my life. You're gonna tell me that someone like let's say people in California, you're gonna give a oh is mass production farming good for the nation? They're all gonna say fucking hell no. But then you go to the middle states, they're all gonna say fucking hell yeah, or some shit like that, right? I just
So the issue isn't
I'm
statistics. Your issue is how the studies are formed.
no, it's the fact that there's a side they can create a statistical side for anybody or for any argument you can give. It's not there's not like one like there's never like a one factual thing. You have to based on your opinion, you can go in and make statistics.
Well,
Work
statistics are not based on opinion.
we-
Statistics are based on empirical fact,
but
not
you can
opinion.
find empirical fact about both sides. I promise you. It's
No,
the most bullshit.
empirical data is data that is irrespective of opinion. It is what is.
Yeah, but there's
It's a
humans.
record of what is.
There's humans going and doing those studies and those statistics towards what they sometimes what they believe more so than what's right. And if you want to make an argument about something, you can pull a statistic from out your fucking ass and make an argument. That's why I just don't like. I like human experience more so than I like statistic, because at least it's a solid human experience. It's not a fucking number that some bullshit whoever the fuck made up to say whatever they want.
So if you and 100 other people had the same human experience, you wouldn't want that qualified or
We
quantified in any
won't.
way.
We won't have the same human experience because we won't be raised by the same exact person. We won't be from the same exact part, go through the same exact life experiences, totally the same exact life experiences. You know, like there's so many different factors on all of this. That's just why I don't like statistics. I'm not a big fan. That's just me.
Because you're equating statistics with opinion rather than simply saying that what gender causes the most car accidents when that is empirical data to look at.
No, I'm saying that there's statistics out there supporting both sides. I'm saying I guarantee you could look up whatever statistic you want and look at the other side, and there's an argument to it.
Okay, so maybe that can be homework for
Yeah,
next week.
that's all I'm
Let's
saying.
say
It's a
in your individual
flawed
state,
science.
we'll say, all right, which gender causes the most car accidents? There's no room for opinion.
Mm-hmm.
right? There's no room for human experience. We can't validate whether or not the guy or the girl grew up in a perfect household. It's data as is.
As it should be. Yes. Yeah. But then there's going to be ones that are like, well, this is technically a this, and this person's technically this. So therefore they make this, even though this is maybe technically this and
You can
technically
try and
that.
misconstrue it. You can try
I'm,
and misconstrue it all you
I'm just
want.
saying that's what they do with statistics. They misconstrue all that shit. All of it. Every single little bit of it is misconstrued. Here's an example.
So then
Let's
your
take,
argument then is we shouldn't ever use statistics.
no,
Because
my
you can't
argument
trust
is you shouldn't. There should be like a full analysis of something on both sides, statistically, before you make an
it. Or
opinion on it.
you
Which
I'm
I
not
think
talking
about,
about opinion in the least.
or you
I'm
make
talking
an
about
argument for it. So there should be a look at both sides.
there's no
Statistics.
there's no argument. There's no arguing 2 + 2 = 4.
Well, 2 + 2 also equals 5 in calculus. So I'm just saying.
Anyway, we're getting a little off topic.
Yes, we
here.
are, and I think
That could be a good debate for another time.
I think we've debated a lot as well. I think we could probably rest of that.
We went on some rabbit
to end
trails.
it. I think the hope would be that everyone would be able to homeschool their kids, but there's definitely there's pros and cons to both of them. There's definitely
absolutely.
It's one of those things that's based on the person. Now, private school,
Yeah. And
if you can
what do
afford
you
that,
want for your family? What do you want for your family structure? What do you want for your
in
your
what
kid?
situation are you
And
currently
how
in?
and sure.
Yeah,
Cool. Good talk. That was fun.
that was good.
We haven't done that one in a while.
I know. We used to do some ones that we've been trying to pick
bounce
ones
off the
that
wall.
we've been trying to pick ones that we